Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. Renato, good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for joining us, my friend. Oh, more people are coming. All right, good stuff. Um, Let me see who else is coming. All right, cool. As you all know, as I've been promoting this interview for a little bit time now, it's been a week or two, a week now. Yasir Sheikh is a really, really good, probably one of my best friends here in Orlando. His wife is best friends with my wife. His kids, his daughters are best friends with my daughters. So we have a multiple layers of connection. Um, I first met him a few years ago at a dinner, random dinner. A mutual friend put together. And I walked in and we started talking. We hit it off. Um, I thought he was an IT guy, or maybe a doctor, or maybe a lawyer. Typical Pakistani occupation, right? Come to find out, he is a self-made entrepreneur, and his story just blew me away. I mean, when I hear it all the time, and I interview him, we're having coffee or dinner, or he's over for dinner. I pick his brain quite a bit, so I thought he'd be a good candidate, a good person to interview today for you guys, to pick up some good value. So we'll get started. Yasir, how you feeling, man?
I'm great. Nice to meet everybody here. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to having this chat with you guys.
Thank you, Yasir. Thank you so much, guys. Yasir's been interviewed on Telemundo, all the Huffington Post, CNN, Fox News, all the major platforms. And we'll get to that part in a second. Why he was interviewed? It's a pretty interesting story. Yasir, let's get started, man. So, Yasir, you're born in Orlando, Florida, right?
I'm born and raised in Florida. Yep, Orlando, Central Florida.
Where are mom and dad from?
Parents are from Pakistan. They're immigrants. They came in kind of similar to your situation. They came in as immigrants into the U.S. and that was a couple of years later. I was born here in Florida.
Yeah. So mom and dad come in, immigrants from Pakistan, probably struggling, right? Your dad wasn't a doctor or a lawyer, anything special, right? He was just an entrepreneur also.
Yeah, so he came in and he was an entrepreneur as well. He had his own business, import export business. So I kind of grew up in that environment. I saw actually my mom's side of the family also came from a family business as well. So it's kind of they joke around and say kind of it's in the blood, but
It's blood.
I tend to disagree, but I can see why that might be the case.
Sure, awesome. You and your brother, right? Two boys, being raised. Okay, let's talk about earlier. Is like, when did you think? Were you a good student in growing up in high school, junior high school?
So I was a mediocre student. I think one of the things was that I was always curious, right? And sometimes I didn't find the curiosity coming from the books, and I would venture out. Like I was the type of kid that like if I go to the mall with my parents, I'm like, hey, I'll see you guys later. I'll be back, and I'll just kind of venture away from them. And I was just naturally curious to see, like explore my own curiosity rather than be guided into like what I wanted to learn. So I think that was one, important kind of benchmark growing up is always just being curious. And I think that was a part of my childhood as well.
So, team, I'm writing my notes, and every time we do an interview, we did with Lewis, we did with Derek, we did with John G, Ryan. I make my notes, and I recommend everyone here to do that as well, because and the top number one thing is the curiosity. The curiosity is a huge, huge trait for success. And we'll get to that in a second, but write that down, please. Okay, Yasser. So you're curious. You're a mediocre student, middle class family, a lower middle class. Got it. All right,
Middle class, yeah.
middle class. You went to college?
I did. I went to UCF.
What?
Everything I did was local. So I'm a big Orlando advocate. And anytime anyone has any questions about Orlando, come to me. But I'm a big proponent of all things Orlando, the growth, kind of everything here that we have going on in Orlando. I love it.
Yeah. He's. So I'm from Miami. He's every time we joke with him going back to Miami, he's convincing me to stay here, and he probably is one of the reasons why I'm staying here. So, Yasser, quickly, when do you think the entrepreneurial bug hit you or bit you, if you want to say?
So I was in college. I would say probably early in college, maybe even late in high school, I would say. But like, it was one of those things where like if you're, growing up and in our culture, it was like, hey, you're either doctor, lawyer, engineer, like you said. And I always wanted to have my own business. There was something about that. I didn't know what it was, but I just always wanted to be have my own business. I think the idea was like not being capped in terms of what I could make, right? And I think just having that ability to just know that like, hey, whether you're a doctor or lawyer, engineer, to some extent, you're basically told this is how much you're ever going to make. With that said, the pros on those professions is that there are textbooks that can guide you to that path, right? So like you read this book, you pass this test, you're going to be making this much money. The entrepreneur side of things was that you don't have that cap. So now the downside of it is that there's no paved path, right? There's no book you can read that's going to guarantee you X amount of salary. There's no test that you can take that's going to guarantee you an X amount of salary. And no one in here has a guaranteed pay, from my understanding. So we're all in control of our own destiny. And that can be challenging, but it is also extremely rewarding because you can pave your own path. So kind of growing up and answering your question now, what was a bug that bit me was I didn't want to have a capped potential. So I started reading into like just really famous entrepreneurs growing up. And it was just intriguing to me to know like what their path was. And I almost started to like align with that path, right? Because you would almost see like a common trait in some of these successful entrepreneurs. They had a balance of discipline with a balance of like rebellion, right? Like there was something about it that they just failed to follow status quo. And whereas again, you look at like your hallmark professions, your doctors, lawyers, engineers, they're status quo, right? Like entrepreneurs, we see speed limit 45, we know we can go 52, you know. And whereas like your professionals are like, hey, 45, I'm gonna go 44, right? So I think it's like that type of mindset that helps you kind of like break the mold. And it was that kind of tying back into like, okay, I wasn't the ideal student, although like I do think towards the end of college I started to get my shit together, but like I wasn't the ideal student, but I didn't want to accept status quo for that reason as well, right? So I think that was when I kind of started to realize like, hey, I don't want to be a profession where my potential is capped out.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's why we're all here, right? Like Raquel is an architect, right? And she was over for dinner with my wife and I were talking to her, and that's one of the reasons my wife asked you, right, Raquel? Like Raquel, why leave? You studied this thing for a long time. Why leave that? And same thing you said. There's a cap, the limit that what you can do. So Yasir, you're in college. What was the first business? What was the first thing you started with?
So the first business I got into was NASCAR. I got into the NASCAR industry. Now I know I don't look like someone that could be in NASCAR industry, right? So, and I stuck out like a sore thumb, man. I would go into those races. So I'll tell you why I wanted to get into NASCAR. So I started studying industries basically. What would be something that would guide me, or kind of like pave the path of success, and I wanted to do it myself, right? And I think one of the important things, and we'll touch base on this, was that I had a lot of personal motivation to do something myself, right? This on a personal level, but there was something inside of me that said, like, you have something to prove. I had a chip on my shoulder, and basically, in doing so, I started to look at all kinds of industries, right? So I got into NASCAR. Long story short, I got into that industry, and there was a few different metrics that said, okay, like this might be the right industry to get into. This was in 2008. I was just graduating college, so I was about 21, 22 years old, and I started to meet with like I went to New York at a trade show, and my goal was, at the time, I was fake it till you make it, right? Like I had nothing to my name, but I was going to meet with NASCAR professionals, and I had to convince them that I was capable of getting their license on my products. And I didn't have any products at the time, right? So it was all about like how convincing can you be as an individual. And I mean, if you looked at me, if you saw pictures of me at the age of 21, 22, I didn't look like a professional at all, right? Like, I mean, I was literally like just out of college, and I looked like it.
Yeah.
But I had to convince them that I was something. So I ended up landing deals with them. I ended up getting invited to their headquarters. I got invited to their races. I studied anything and everything related with NASCAR. I knew the drivers. I knew which ones are the top three drivers, which ones earn the most amount of money. I did research on basically like the audience that goes to those races, what they like, how much those tickets were, and how, based on how, like, you just to give you an example, like at a traditional sports stadium, the lower you sit, the more expensive the tickets are. Whereas in NASCAR and sports races, it's
I
the higher you sit, the more expensive they are. So I wanted to have a product that would actually be attractive to those people that were sitting higher in the stadium that were also paying more money, right? So I ended up doing that. I did that for about a couple of years until I sold it off to one of my distributors at pretty much a good time, right in the time of a recession. So it ended up working out. So that was my first jab at entrepreneurship.
so I thought you like didn't do well, but you actually sold that business. Like you walked away with like a positive like in the green.
It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough for me to get started on something else. Yeah.
That's good to know. I never knew that part. I thought that it was just a tank, and then you tried. Okay, good, awesome. So let's go touch on that part you skipped over. I don't know if you want to talk about it briefly. I mean, we're here with the agents of our team right now. The inner stuff that you had, the shoulder, the chip on the shoulder. Talk about that.
So without I do plan on talking about it more in detail in the future. But for the sake of this call, basically I had a chip on my shoulder where I had someone very close to me telling me, "Hey, you're not you're not capable of doing X, Y, and Z. In fact, you're not capable of making more than $5 an hour. You're not capable of working at anywhere more than McDonald's." I mean, these are someone that I held close to me at the time growing up, and that was my driving force, right? I mean, it was like it's something when you feel like you've actually been when the wound is deep, that's what gives you the most motivation. And I would venture to say that anybody who's successful in life in any profession, and that definition of successful is basically variable based on person to person, case by case, they have a chip on their shoulder and they have some sort of motivation, something that's either current or that has happened in the past, that they have something to prove. And I firmly believe that. I think everybody who's successful has something on a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, I think, either a divorce can happen. Your spouse can say something to you. You can, you could be a parent, you know what I mean? It could be a friend. It could be a situation. I think most of you know my story, my stroke, right? That was my situation. That was like, okay, I have to do something bigger and better. But okay, cool, Yasser, I understand. So that was something that was I won't say catalyst, but it was one of the elements, part of the recipe for you to say, you know what, let's go from 0 to 100.
Yeah, I mean, I believe struggle breeds success. And if I didn't have some sort of struggle or inner demon, I don't think I would have had that motivation, right? And I mean, we talk about this with our kids. Is like, how do we get them to the point of not of having that struggle, that balance of struggle in their lives? Of course, we want to have the best for them, but if you look historically, the most successful people have had troubled childhoods, and they've had something that's been a catalyst for helping them get motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. Question. So Michelle's asking, what product was it for the previous company?
It was a binocular, actually. It was an autofocus binocular. I actually have it right here. This is my first prototype.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it was my first binocular, and this had a license of this has Dale Earnhardt Jr. Sorry, Dale Earnhardt Sr. on there, but that
Yeah.
was my first product. So the idea was, hey, the higher you sit, the more you may need this product, right? And you can afford it because those are the more expensive tickets. So that was one of my first products I got into, and I didn't even manufacture it. I didn't have a design. I literally didn't even have this prototype that I'm holding when I got those licenses. So again, it was one of those things where you just have to. I think it's the struggle, right? It's the hunger that helps you get to that point. Helps like when you're talking with that kind of conviction, the people believe, like your customers are going to believe it, right? When you've got that hunger and that motivation, your customers feel it, and they know it. So when they're feeding off of that, you can convince them anything at that point.
You're right. That's a really good point, man. Um, when did the current project come? How did that come to you? How old were you when you came up with the project you're working on right now?
So I was 22 years old, so it was right around that time. It was literally just getting
22.
from, yeah, it was just jumping from one thing to the other. Um, so this industry that I'm in, like basically had no innovation at all. And it kind of ties back into that chip on my shoulder. So I had motivation to kind of get into this industry, and I had um, an opportunity to basically start inventing products. And I realized that there's no innovation. There was basically stagnation in this industry. So one of the first things I did was create a new product. I designed a product, and it was like a patented. I ended up getting it patented later on. It was my first patented product, and I designed it, and it ended up getting natural traction. I ended up meeting with Amazon in 2009. I ended up cutting a deal with them back then to help promote the product, and that was when it was extremely rare to be selling a product on Amazon. And then after that, the snowball just kept rolling into other avenues. I was able to leverage that relationship into other relationships. So I think leveraging, and I know in real estate that's kind of like the MO, and what you got to do is leverage your real estate. But I think leveraging your assets just in general is probably one of the most important things you can do as well, right? Whether that's leveraging your resume, your experiences, um, leveraging anything that you have at that point. Again, in real estate, you're just taught to like leverage your money so you can get 25% LTV, and you can get a home, or 20% LTV. But I think leveraging experience is probably even more important than that. So I was able to leverage experience, but I was also able to leverage relationships that I had started to establish when I first built this business, and I think that's kind of what helped snowball the effect from there.
What's the name of the business?
I'm sorry.
What's the name of the company? The company you have right now.
What's it mean?
What's the name? What's the name? What's the name? What's the
Oh, the name is Guard Dog Security. Yeah,
guard dog?
Guard Dog Security.
Okay, guard dog security. And what do you guys offer? What is it you guys provide?
So we do pepper sprays. We design, manufacture, and distribute pepper sprays, stun guns, personal defense products like bulletproof products. So basically, the idea was, again, kind of getting into the name of the game was innovation, right? So I created products. I patented a lot. I patented products. That was kind of I got into a patented spree, right? So like in the first 5 years or 7 years, I was just like design, create, um, and then I ended up finding out like, hey, the more unique products had higher profit margin. They were higher in appeal. So it ended up being a win-win. And it just made me just motivated to like, okay, just keep designing, keep going, keep changing things up. Don't be stagnant. Um, so I think that was kind of the name of the game initially, was just to innovate. So now we have over 25 patented products. Our competition, who've been in the industry for 50 years, that's literally our biggest competitors now, they have three, right? So, and they started over the last 5 years, they started their innovation, right? So they kind of like, we helped kind of propel that innovation in the industry. So I think that was the name of the game for us.
That's crazy, man. At 22, you guys, let's put that. Let's I'm gonna break that down for y'all. An individual whose parents are from Pakistan, born in Orlando, at 22, went into a world where I'm sure there were giants, Yasir. I mean, they were probably white individuals, corporate degrees, right? Major degrees on the wall, a lot of funding. And here you come, a 22-year-old, Pakistani descent, coming in their world. Dude, that's powerful. Like, I mean, I don't know how I would feel if I was in your shoes now at age 40 and going into a world where, man, I don't have a name. I don't have a father's name like Sam Walton, right? I don't have a Mark Cuban as an older brother. Like, how does that make you feel, man? You're like a small fish in a huge ass fucking pond, man.
I think the name of the game was discomfort, right? And I didn't realize this until I think the name, I didn't realize it until later. But so, like you said, I got my first business is in NASCAR. I'm I'm a brown dude in a white man's industry, right? And I was not only that, but I was young. I was in my early 20s. So I'm young, when my clientele, they're older white men, and I'm brown when my clientele are white, right? And then I get into another industry where I'm also young, but ironically I end up getting into another white man's industry, which is personal defense, right? Um, and I'm still young. Like at the time, I was still young, right? So like I didn't realize at the time I'm putting myself in uncomfortable situations, but it all bred from being uncomfortable, right? Like when I mentioned the chip on my shoulder, like you're not thinking about putting yourself in the most comfortable scenarios, because when you're going to do that, you're only going to get comfortable results, right? You're only going to get a result that breeds just comfort. So, and a lot of times comfort is not happiness, right? Like comfort isn't, sorry, what I would say, comfort is not monetary success, right? So I realized just innately I was making myself uncomfortable. I was putting myself in uncomfortable situations. And that's like, and if I kind of fast forward to today, I think I'm more mentally durable than a lot of people my age, because I've just been so uncomfortable over the last 15 years, that now it's not like what would be seen as an uncomfortable situation for a lot of people would be okay for me. Like I can handle it today, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but like it's one of those things where you can just say like, okay, hey, that 15 years I leveraged it to become a more durable person today, and putting myself in situations where literally you're dealing with a VP of a large organization, and your name may not be even the most comfortable thing for them. I mean, I don't have a TSA friendly name for that matter, and I'm going into like industries which were just dominated by the other side in terms of like, hey, you don't belong here. Then how am I convincing them? How am I getting to the table and getting deals done at an early age? And I think it was just like it was the hunger, it was the uncomfortableness, it was just like that desire to do something that would be proving to myself.
Wow, that's incredible, man. Sky, let's unpack this for 1 second. His last name is Sheikh. If I know not many people are aware, Sheikh is a very Arabic last name. He's from Pakistan, but it's a very Arabic name. Imagine having a last name like that, and you go into the corporate white world. Sheikh, terrorists, bad people coming into the world where corporate white people are selling a product. Like you have to understand the mindset. So for us agents, when we see it, when we go for a listing presentation, and we get overwhelmed, we should think about that, right? It's okay to be uncomfortable. Discomfort, guys. Comfort never brought success. I can guarantee you that. And I always say this whenever we get together on meetings, that discomfort is one of the key ingredients to move forward. You know, um, wow, that's incredible. Guys, let's talk, man. So you're in the game. First year, how was revenue?
First year, and without diving into numbers, first year was enough to prove the concept,
Got it.
right?
Done. So check
I'm
mark.
I'm a lo- yeah, I'm a one man show at that point. I'm doing sales, I'm doing customer service, I'm packing the boxes, but at the same time, it's like again, you got to do what you got to do. But it was enough to say, hey, I think I'm onto something here, and yeah, I'm working long hours. I'm putting in physical labor, and I'm putting intellectual labor while putting in physical labor. But I think it's working. I think I'm onto something here.
That's amazing. Year two, better, obviously, right?
Yeah, I mean, as time went on, I got, you end up getting a little more sophisticated, or you end up getting savvy, right? Like for example, I couldn't afford a full-time employee, so I actually reached out. UCF had a program where you could basically get
Interns.
yeah, you could get an intern and for subsidized pay. So they would pay 50% of the pay. I would pay 50% of the pay. So like at the time, I mean, $10 was a decent amount of money. I'm paying five, UCS paying five, right? Um, so I was able to get my first employee for basically $5 an hour, right? And that helped me grow, and I was able to get more traditional, structured employees at that point. So it was, you have to be scrappy, and that's one thing that goes back into being, uncomfortable, is like you just have to be scrappy. Like you have to figure out like, hey, I see on TV, entrepreneurs have this huge, this huge business and a huge building, and they're going up in the elevator to their offices, and they've got all these employees they're reporting to, and they just walk down the aisle of cubicles and they're just saying good morning to everybody. You know, that's not reality, right?
Yeah.
And that's not how you start on a business, right? When you start on a business and you're getting started, it's scrappiness, it's being savvy, it's hey, I got to do everything myself. And even though I know this is quote unquote below my pay grade, I signed up for this. So if I'm not putting it in, no one else is going to do it, right? And no one's going to do it as well as I'm going to do it, especially at this point. So it was at the point where even when I hired my first like warehouse packer, I trained him and I had passion in training him. And I was like, no, dude, you got to pack a box like this. This is how the tape goes on the box. Like I was anal about everything that had to do with the business. And it would, if I didn't know everything myself, I wouldn't be able to hire.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that was important.
So you knew all the different angles, all different departments. Yasir, can you give us an idea of so how many years in the business now?
About 12 years now at this
12
point.
years. You comfortable now?
I'm never comfortable, man. You know me, I'm never comfortable. I think it's one of those things where naturally as a business owner, it doesn't matter what you do. And I've heard it from so many people way more successful than I am. You're never successful, or you're never comfortable. Sorry, you're never comfortable. You wake up in the morning and you're like, what's going to happen to my business? Even though on the surface, you seem to have a stable business, you're never comfortable.
Yeah. With how you, I'm just thinking, what advice would you give the agents to like, how do you, some of them have, spouses working, some of them have, situations that I think sometimes kind of like, a cushion. What would you say, like, even with that, having that as a thing, and how do you stay uncomfortable?
So a lot of it now, I mean, as we get older and our personal lives develop, there's different things that you can do, right? Obviously, like not everyone's personal life can support like, okay, hey, I'm going here, I'm going all in, like see you later. And if you have kids and you have a wife, that's not as easy to do, right? So one of the things is to you still can't be complacent, right? And not being complacent and content, you want to couple that with other things, whether that's being focused or whether that's being organized to help you achieve your goals. I think that becomes more important as you go later on in life, right? Like it's naturally easier when you're younger to just go all in and be obsessive,
Yes.
right? It gets a little bit harder as you get older. But then as you get older, you want to take into in your toolbox, you should have different tools, whether that's organization or that's focus or that's just being level-headed, right? So you want to just think about other things. Like think about you as yourself as a publicly traded company. And publicly traded companies are just trying to get incrementally better. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel overnight. So they're just saying, how do I get 5% better than my last quarter? And then 5% better than the quarter after that, right? So basically, you just want to continue to get better. You just want to get incrementally better as time goes on.
That's pretty powerful, guys. And that's something Edison says all the time, right, Eddie? He's, I think he's showing the house with an agent. But what does that mean for us agents? We're not asking to you to perfect and become the Serena Williams or Michael Jordans of real estate the next day. But what we are asking everyone to do, including us leaders, right? One is to improve that 5, 10, 20% every day or every week, right? Um, and that little gain, the little inch that you get eventually adds up. And like Yasir says, um, in the end, it makes a big difference. Yasir, your daily routines. I know what you do, man. I know. So one thing he does is really crazy, and I'm gonna have him talk about the Sunday thing. But what time you wake up in the morning?
So I wake up around 6 every morning, and I, so that may not be like as early as like your Tony Robbins and stuff like that, but I do end up staying late a little bit as well. So I get a lot of my work done late at night now. So kind of tying back, like having kids, like I like certain things, like I like being a part of their bedtime routine, right? And if I want to be a part of their bedtime routine, I have to be home at a certain time. And if I have to be home at a certain time, I have to leave the office a little bit early. And especially because I go to the gym right after work. So now, I mean, everything is stacked up, right? So I have to try to be home at a certain time to help with my kids to sleep. But when they go to sleep, I start to work again, right? So even though I might be working the same amount of time, I just move the blocks around basically because now I have a personal life where I want to check the boxes of my personal life, right? So kind of going into a routine. So basically, when I wake up in the morning, I like to run in the morning. So that's something recent has actually like over the last few months. So I do get out for a run in the morning. I like to get a little bit of sunlight. It's just natural and it's um, I'm kind of forgetting his name, Dr. Huberman. So Dr. Huberman is great if you guys want to listen to him. So he's got the Huberman podcast, and he talks about, hey, in the morning, get some sunlight, and I think that's something that's really good for me is just kind of getting out. So I used to have a Peloton at home, and I used to do that in the morning. But then it's like, why am I sitting at home when I'm going to be sitting indoors again later on throughout the day? So I like to kind of get out and get that fresh air. So I get out, get that fresh air, drop one of my kids off to school. I go straight into work. Now, one of the important things is like when I talk about getting better every day, I'm like, even though I consider myself relatively tech savvy, I have a physical planner that I've had for years, right? Like it's my physical planner right here. And every day I'm plotting out, like I'm going through my planner, and that has certain things to help me get better incrementally every day now, right? So basically I want to know, I plot my day out, I plot my week out on Sundays, but every day I have, what's my one win of the day? Like what is one thing that I do today that's gonna be considered for me a win? So what you don't want to do is you don't just want to be a doer every day. Because if you're just a doer, you're just checking things off of a list. But if you accomplish one thing today, what is that one thing that makes you believe that today was a successful day? So for me, that's how I continue to move the needle every day. I have a
Uh,
daily gratitude. I have a daily gratitude that says, what am I thankful for every day? And I think that also helps put into perspective, like you're just bring you back down to earth, right? Because like no matter what happens, you're busy, you have a lot going on, but you don't realize that in any situation, you're exponentially in a better situation than a lot of people in this world, right? So, and my one gratitude cannot be the same that's been in the past, right? So in the beginning, you're like, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm grateful I have a house, I'm grateful for this. But then when you're on like day 400, you start to think, right? And then you're like, hey, I'm grateful that I can breathe fresh air. I'm
yes.
grateful that I can see the sun. I'm grateful that I have, that I have five fingers on both of my hands, right?
Do
Because then you
I?
start to realize, right, two eyes. So then, that's one of those things that just really helps you kind of just come back to earth because you're like, hey, it is about win, win, win. But at the same time, how are you self-reflecting to be grateful for what you already have, right? So my morning routine, I'm running, I drop the kids off to school, I get into the office, I take my planner, I move my daily tasks into my into my to-do list. I have check boxes for what I want to get done every week. So I have like skills or habits that I want to get done. So every week I refresh those. So it could be exercise, cardio, getting my veggies. It could be making sure I'm looking at my yearly goals, right? Because a lot of times what people do is they set goals and they just completely forget about it. But are you conscious about looking at those goals every day? And do you have weekly goals, daily goals? Do you have monthly, yearly goals? And are you looking at them and reminding yourself of those goals every day? And I think that's one of those things that I practice every day. I flip over to my yearly, my monthly, my weekly, and I write down my daily goals. So I'm always looking at them because if it's statistically proven, the more you look at them, the higher chance that you have to accomplish them, right? And before I was writing it down on a planner, I would actually I would type it up and I would just tape it to my bathroom window. So like I had to look at my weekly goals every morning, right? And I'm just like mentally, I'm just reading it and seeing it, and that helped me a lot as well, right? So that's my morning routine. And then I get into the office, like I said, I have my to-do list, but I have my one win of the day. So no matter what I do, I have to get that one win, even if I have to plow through other tasks. I just have to get that one win every day. And then uh, I go to the gym and I go home to get my kids, make sure I get my kids, put them to bed, and then I get back to work. I spend time with my wife. I have dinner with my wife, and then I get right back to work, and then rinse and repeat until, and again, the idea here is that just getting incrementally better, and that's the name of the game for me.
Wow, guys, a lot to unpack there. So by the way, a segue promotion for tomorrow's thing. I'm doing the business planning thing with you guys. So thank you, Yasir, for putting that in there. How important is planning and goals, right? That tomorrow's session will be at 11 a.m. at the headquarters of More Homes. Please be there. We're gonna go over some good stuff. Wow, 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 wow. So, oof, I have my notes over here. Daily gratitude. That's super important. People understand that. I think you guys remember, Rafaela, you were there with us this summer. Raquel was there. I did a boot camp. Me and Kevin did a boot camp, and that's one of the things that we put on there, right, at the board. How important is gratitude? Because look, market is crap right now. It's shifting. Whereas last year, this time we're closing 3, 4 deals a month each of us. We're down to 1 or 2 right now. Some of us don't have a deal on the board right now. Gratitude will help you focus less on the negative and more on the positive. Tony Robbins says it changes your state of mind. So everyone here who's here on this webinar, please do yourself a favor. 10 things you're grateful for every morning. And some of you say do it in the morning and night. I used to do it once a day. But like Yasir said, you should change them. Like recently, I have the same thing. I have a book. And one day, my wife, my daughter, But then it's like, yo, the lot of other things that we take for granted, our fingers. The fact that, you know what? I mean, he back to going my story, but to go to the bathroom on your own. I was in a hospital. I had to have some guy to come and clean me like a baby at age 35, and that was so crucial for me. So when I was up and walking and I was able to take care of myself, I was so grateful for the fact that I can go to the bathroom on my own. I can go take a shower on my own. I don't need 2 nurses to walk me in there, and. So anyway, with that being said, also goals. Talk about this more tomorrow. Listen, how many of y'all have goals? Raise your hand. Awesome. So the thing is that I bet you most of you have it here. And it's really important to have it in a piece of paper or on a board in front of you. And I'll talk about that more tomorrow. The one win for the day, that's crucial. To Edison's and Juan's point, they talk about that all the time. It's okay. Like this market is tough. I keep saying that, but aim for that one win. What's that one win for us in real estate? A new relationship, a new connection. Someone, and by the way, we don't have to make a new connection to sell in the house or her house. Someone that knows your first name now. That should be our win. Our win for the day. A new person that knows Michelle. That's it. There's nothing about real estate, nothing about mortgages that knows Raquel. And you build on that. Now, Raquel, what do you do? I'm in real estate. But don't try to sell them. So when you try to sell them and this and that, to sell yourself. Hey, how can I help you? What can I do for you? How can I provide value to your life? So Josh, you wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. Just like you have a company, you've been 12 years in the business. Do you really have to go to the office every morning, bro? Like, can you sleep in till 10 and then get up and do a cup of coffee with beautiful wife and take her for a walk? Like, why?
So the idea is this, like, I mean, technically no, right? Like, I mean, I've been taking more vacations, this, like I go more away now than I have before.
Yeah, your wife takes you, bro. Not. Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea is this, right? Like, I've gotten now to the point, like, I've been blessed to have a business where I don't have to look at the granular aspects of the business every day, where I can be more, I can look at the overall broad picture. And that's been one of the things that's been good for me as well, is that being able to kind of zoom out and be able to focus, like, okay, like I did a lot of the groundwork, although it's never done, the groundwork, the pieces are there. And as you know, when it's your pride and joy, you're always looking at it with some critique. And I think that's been one of the things that helped me grow as a person, is like removing myself from the perfection of the day to day, and knowing that there's
Mm.
going to be a lot of imperfection on a day to day, but just saying, can I zoom out and look at the big picture? And at some point, like, it's kind of like a basketball analogy, right? Like, hey, or like any sports analogy, but when the team is winning, you can get away with some of the imperfections underneath, right? So like if two people don't get along, it's okay, or hey, if the the perfections of the company aren't there on a micro basis, as long as I can make the top of that funnel bigger, then everything else kind of falls into place at some point, right? So now the idea is like, how do I get into the business and help the top line numbers? How do I get in there, lead a meeting to help achieve some goals that we might have as a company? So that's kind of that's the reason why I get in here now. And the motivation is different now, right? Because now the motivation is like, hey, if someone has a squeaky chair, I'm grateful I don't have to worry about it anymore, right? Like I think that's one of those things that's like, I was able to achieve that like small level of success, to say like, okay, I don't have to work on it. I've got someone that's going to deal with it. But now it's like, okay, a new product launch. How do I get ready for this next big event? And a lot of it has just been kind of working on that, right? So that's where the drive is to come in every day now.
So, guys, going back, we had Juan's boy Lewis. We had Edison's good friend Derek. Derek and Lewis are multi-millionaires. Derek doesn't have to work anymore. He has a private plane. He told me the other day. Lewis, Juan's buddy, I talked to him quite a bit now. Amazing, humble guy, 29 years old, multi-millionaire. They don't have to work. We have John G on our team. John G, I don't know if you guys know, I don't put his business out there. John G has a lot of money behind him. Like he doesn't have to go sell homes. He doesn't have to wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, go to the gym, and open doors for people to buy a home. And that's what I'm saying, that even at their level, in Yasir, Lewis, Derek, John, at their level that they are, they don't have to do it, but they're doing it. And that's for me is truly incredible. Any questions? Juan, anyone have any questions? Want to jump in quickly?
Hey, Yasser, thanks for your time today. And I was just curious, like in the beginning, because I thought it was powerful that your fuel was the chip on your shoulder. And I think Tim Grover talks about that, like in his book, Relentless, to use your darkness as your power. And I find that as motivation a lot of time. I don't want to do this, I feel lazy, and just snap it into place. So I was curious, your chip on your shoulder, just to dive a little deeper, like when you walked into that first meeting at 22, like you said, you're the brown guy, these old white, probably like redneck men type of industry. What was it? What did you say to yourself in the mirror before you walked in there? Was that, empowered you? Fear, anger? Just curious, because that to me is just super empowering that you had the guts to do that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think there was a two parts to that, in terms of how I was able to overcome that. First of all, when I was told I can't make more than $5 an hour, basically what I do is, like I told you, I have a physical planner, right? So I would take a yellow highlighter, and every week I would write $5 so basically I could see it in the back of the planner every week that I look at my planner. So I'm reminded of it every day. I'm reminded of it every week that, hey, I was told I can't make more than $5 an hour. When I would exercise and I'm getting close to the end, I would count, like if I'm doing 12 reps, I start at 0 and now I'm like, I'm supposed to get to 6 because I'm supposed to do more than 5. So it was like on a daily basis, that was my inner motivation. But then like how I projected it out, when I went into these meetings, I didn't see older white men. I didn't see these people for who they were. For me, they were a barrier to my success. Like I just had to get through them to accomplish my goal. And so I didn't see them as like, it's basically like being colorblind, right? Like if you're colorblind, you still see the same colors that anyone else sees. Your mind just doesn't perceive it that way. So although now I reflect back and I'm like, shit, like how did I do it when I'm, the 22-year-old brown guy in a room of white men? At that time, I didn't see it that way. It was just like, you guys are just, I need to just check. I need to get you guys on my side of the ring, and then I move on. Like
or just like, get out of my way.
Yeah. So, but in order to do that, I had to be intentional about what I did, right? Like, okay, I get into that meeting. Hey, what am I going to do? I'm preparing for that, relentlessly for the days before, the night before, the morning of, and then I'm strategic and I'm tactful about it. But in my mind, I'm like, you guys are just in my way. That's it. It wasn't anything more than the physical aspect of it.
That's amazing.
Awesome. Thank
Good
you.
question, Michelle. Good question. Next
Yeah.
one.
So yeah, I have a big one for you, brother. So I'm very familiar with the e-commerce. Like I've done it before. I mean, I didn't do good, to be honest. I think it's a lot of try and error with that. Like you send a product, if it does good, it does good. As a product that aren't gonna do good, there's a lot of marketing behind. You have to innovate, like you said, right? So, what has been your biggest failure with products? Like I can tell that all of them are good, right? Like you had to have one or two that are like, oh shit, I lost tons of money in that. So do you have any experiences with that?
Yeah, I mean, like every product for us was like a business on its own, right?
Okay.
Like when we looked at it, it was like, yeah, some products would be more successful, some products would be less successful. But when you look at it, like think about it like in real estate terms, right? Like if you have a portfolio of properties, you might have underachievers and you might have overachievers, right? So your overachievers are going to compensate for your underachievers, right? And when I look at it, I have to think about it like, okay, when we go into a new product, we assume it's going to be successful,
Right.
until we're proven otherwise, right? And when we're proven otherwise, it could be by the market, it could be by failure, it could be by execution. So basically, when we would introduce a product, we would just go all in on it, right? And that was one thing, is like we just go all in. We make sure that we don't cut any corners. The packaging's got to be great, the launch has got to be great, everything's got to be checked off. But hey, if it didn't work, then kill it and on to the next, right? Like you can't dwell on it. And again, your goal should be to build that portfolio, so that way you have you're building in safety nets of what might be successful and what's not. Like now, if you just have one product and that's a bust, then you're putting all your eggs in that one basket, right? And
Yeah.
either it's going to be absolutely amazing or it could be just complete shit, right?
Right.
But when you don't have, when you're not diversifying your portfolio, and I think that's the case, like I said, I mean, real estate's a hallmark of that. You got to diversify your portfolio. So that was the same name of the game for us in products.
Gotcha. And the reason why I asked that is just because with real estate agents, it happens that we invest in a lot of things that we want to do, like sellers, buyers, like we send postcards. We do a lot of things because we want to get more business. But the key that you just said right there is going all in. I think sometimes we start with something and we expect results right away.
Yeah.
So we start buying like, postcards for sellers, for farming, and you would do it for a month or two, and that's it. It didn't do good, then we go away from it. So like I think relating that to products is that you gotta go all in with everything that it takes to get that business, and then once you know that you exhausted all the resources, then you move on to the next one and keep growing that portfolio, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I realized was, execution is just so important, right? And if you don't have the proper resources, you're not properly prepared for a particular task, then
Right.
don't do it. Like, I mean, we had a situation where we signed up for a trade show, we spent money for it, we did the displays for it, and I just like, guys, we're not ready for this. I don't think that we're going in this with proper planning and strategy. So I pulled out of it. I mean, we lost a good amount of money, and this has happened on a few occasions where it's like, I'd rather lose money in the front end than lose money and morale and time on the back end.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be willing to say like, okay, hey, I'm in, but I'm not all in, right? And if you're not all in, then just pull out. It just doesn't make sense. Either you do it perfectly, or you don't do it. Like Steve Jobs is a perfect example of that, right? Like he talks about obsession, obsess over the product, obsess over your customer. And if you're just not obsessed over that one thing or two things, you're just not going to get the results that you want.
Right.
Well,
And how do you get upset with something that you don't feel comfortable with, right? For example, like the example Michelle was saying, at first you were going to these clients that were not giving you the time, right? So how do you keep getting obsessed to want to do it, right?
Yeah, can I have
Because with us it happens all the time. I mean, right? We gotta call clients every single day, and how do we get upset with something that doesn't feel too good, right? But I
can I
think that,
add to that question?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, and good morning, Yasir. Uh,
Morning.
Adding to that question, in the at the beginning years, what was the biggest motivation? Was it just to make more money that you have been making, or you saw yourself where you at right now back then?
So back then, the motivation was like just proving wrong, right? So I had to just prove wrong the doubters, and at that point, it was just like, how do I prove them wrong? So at that point, it was just like, what do I need to do? And that was, my key my key motivation at that point. And then Juan, to answer your question, like, I mean, look, you guys in real estate, you hear no all the time, and you get rejected all the time. And rejection is just another form of discomfort, right? Like, if you can't deal with rejection and just adversity, then and you're not prepared for it, or you're not conditioned for it, then you're just gonna feel beat up at every single time. You're just gonna keep getting beat up, right? Like, I mean, look at a punching bag. A punching bag, that thing takes a lot of hits, but it's ready for you the next time you want to come and punch it, right? Like, so you just got to be that punching bag. Like, you're just ready. You're just ready to get hit, but you're durable as ever, right? So I think the idea is, like, in real estate, you guys hear no every single rejection, and like delay tactics and you just have to be conditioned to deal with it, because if you're not, then it's going to be a tough road ahead.
that's amazing.
100%. Great. Yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Juan.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Johnny. Any other questions? Anyone?
I do.
Hey, Rafaela, go for it.
Hi, Yasir. Thanks for everything. I know you talked about being uncomfortable and learning through the years, right? Just kind of how to deal with that and how to navigate not having sort of like a stability because we're not capped, right? And so the biggest issue that I have sometimes coming from corporate, switching from a stable job to real estate is not having that comfort zone and stability, being a mom, having a family. But I know that I can't put myself in that corporate box anymore. That's not where I belong. That's not what I want to do. But I kind of have that, angel devil kind of on my shoulder. So, like, what do you do? Like, how did you overcome that? Like, what are some of the things that I can teach myself? I do a lot of self-talk, but I do have those moments of like, maybe I should just go back to corporate.
So I'll ask a question by asking you another one. What motivates you? One, and number two, what is your self-talk? Like, what are you saying to yourself?
I would say my daughter is my biggest why, right? And providing her with a big life that I've never had. So that would be my motivation. And I'm sorry, what was the other one?
When you self-talk, what are the things that you're saying to yourself?
Don't give up. You just got to keep pushing, keep going, keep going. So, is there anything like maybe should I be looking at my goals more or my habits, tweaking stuff?
So I think that's important, right? Because if your daughter is your motivation, right, you have to do the best for your daughter. And if that means like you never want to put your daughter in an uncomfortable situation, right? And if you're going to say like, listen, I need to accept this 9 to 5 because that's going to provide my daughter with a good future for right now, at least I'm able to put food on the table, and you got to do what you have to do. But if your primary goal is to have the unlimited cap, then your night job is that second goal, right? And you're just saying this 9 to 5 is just here so I can put food on the table, but I know I'm going to do more. And when you say I self-talk and I say do better, do better, do better, you have to combine those two things, right? One, your motivation, which is your daughter, and two, your self-talk, which you're telling yourself you have to do better.
Mm-hmm.
So if a 9 to 5 is what it takes, but then your night job says do better, or your second job, or whether it's, whether you're selling homes or whatever it is, then you have to know, like, that's my end goal. And my current goal to get to my end goal is just a bridge. And it's okay to have a bridge, right? And one thing that we don't see today is, like, we think that, hey, we either go all in on having no safety net or we don't. But you can do both as long as you're leveraging your time and your assets the way that you want to do it, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But just know that, like, if you want to do more, then do more. But be focused on it, right? Because a lot of times what people do is when they take that 9 to 5, they get complacent, they get comfortable, and that's it. But for you, you just have to remain hungry and just not be content with that one level of comfort, knowing that you have a bigger goal ahead of you.
That's deep.
Thank you.
Rafaela, did he answer your question? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Good question, Rafaela. I mean, that's a really important question. Being a single mom, Raquel, what's your takeaway?
Wait, not a single mom, but
I'm sorry. I thought you were single. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed.
no, I do have a husband that's
Confused.
stability, that brings the
I
stability.
confused with someone else. Sorry about
have
that.
that.
Raquel, what's your takeaway?
What's my motivation?
What would you learn today? I mean, you're up and coming agent. I'm so proud of the improvement you're making in the last 6 months. You made a lot of improvements, and I see you growing. What do you think you learned from today's thing with Yasir?
Just keep doing what I know that I want to do, and not giving up. Like I've always said, not giving up. The road's not easy, but not let the negative things that are going to be hitting us all the time because of the way the market is, and in general, let that gain power over me. So basically, I liked what he said, and I wrote it down. What you said, I wrote it down. I love that. Hold on, give me a second. I wrote it because if not, I'll forget.
Yeah.
Gratitude will make you focus more on the positive than in the negative.
Yeah.
And that had made a complete change on me for the last month. And that a few months ago, it was so hard on me, the market, everything. So I started to focus more on my goals, on the positive, and just not look at those little things that were getting over me and putting me down, and just the attitude change.
Beautiful.
With what we've talked here, and it's a completely different
world
feeling and person that I am compared to 4 months ago.
I see it. I see the paradigm shift, and that's what we're here for. Thank you, Raquel. Amazing feedback. Anyone else before I let Yasir go? Yasir's a busy man. Thank you, Yasir. Yuan have to jump on the Zoom.
Yes.
With me. Yes.
I just wanted to add a quote, one of my favorites, related to the conversation today. And it says that you might be winning, but you are not growing. And growing might be the best form of winning.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's really good. Where'd you get that from?
It's a 12 Rule for Life by Jordan Peterson.
Okay, yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. Good one, Johnny. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Thank you, guys. Good morning.
I just want to say that, Yasir, I'm going to look your products up, and because security, just kind of sidebar from motivation and everything, security is like a big issue with realtors.
Yes.
And like something that a lot of us are, we get a safety class when we get our license, and they kind of give us a discount if we want to get a whatever the license is to carry a gun that I'm not really interested in. So just wanted to share that with you, and don't know if you market towards real estate agents, but
good idea.
That is, I mean, we go to places by ourselves and no one knows where we are. And I get a million emails every day for all kinds of different things that pertain to real estate, and security is not one of them. So just kind of thinking about all that at once.
We had
So.
some we had one of our distributors selling to like Century 21 a while ago, and they were doing quite well. So I'm aware of the need and the demand for personal defense when it comes to what your guys' profession. You're kind of out there putting yourself in dangerous situations constantly. So definitely aware of that, and thank you for that that tidbit. It's definitely helpful.
So I'll share the website information, and I will connect you guys with the company. Good work, guys. Well, thank you everyone for jumping on today. There'll be a part 2 to this on our podcast at Business Casual. We'll do the dates right now, but Yasir's a good friend. And we, by the way, so once that he had to jump into the meeting. Thank you for your time. Edison couldn't, he was in and out, but we really appreciate you on behalf of leadership here at More Homes, man, Yasir. We appreciate your time and your effort, guys. This has been, he's Yasir number 6 and number 7 guest. The same faces come every time, and I'm noticing that. So trust me, the ones that keep coming. You're gonna get a lot of value, and I wish more people can follow suit. Moving forward. But thank you, Yasir. Thank you so much, man.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. How do I record this?